Hello, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's your host, the Truth Buster, and it's still December 4th, 2015. I want to thank you for tuning in once again. Well, I have another article from All News Pipeline in front of me here, and it calls back to the scenario of the false flags being carried out here in the United States. Now, before I dive into it, I want to mention something. A couple things here. First, those who don't know, these terrorists are funded, supplied, given intelligence to, and all the things they need, all the tools they need to carry their attacks out by the Western-backed governments and their intelligence agencies from all across the Western Hemisphere, from the United States government to the UK to the European Union and others, MI6, CIA. They help them all. Not only that, you need to look up what happened a few years ago with the underwear bomber suspect. Now, the witness that was there is I believe he's, if I remember right, he's an attorney. Say what you will about the man, but he was on Alex Jones' show a few years ago, giving all the dirty laundry out about this case, of how he was brought in by the feds and screened right on through without going through security checkpoints. Now, let's get into the article, shall we? I have an article in front of me from All News Pipeline titled, "They Are Here. More Attacks. San Bernardino Past. DHS vetting outrageous new information emerges as police and experts face off with Obama over guns." Now, before I get into the article, there's something I want to point out. This is from Fox Business News, titled, "ISIS in America. Take a good look." It says 51% of travel attempted to travel abroad, 27% in plots for attacks in the U.S., and 6% are male. And it also goes on to say right there, ISIS in America. ISIS supporters' average age are 26 years old. Activity located in 21 states. Nearly all are U.S. citizens, and 40% are converts to Islam. I'll show that for you one more time. Now, let's get into the heading of the article. In the first 11 months of this year, we have already identified 12 individuals brought into this country as refugees who have been subsequently implicated into terrorism. On December 3rd, 2015, a letter was sent to Attorney General Lynch, Secretary Johnson, and Secretary Kerry from U.S. senators. CBS News dropped a bombshell on their Twitter account December 3rd, informing followers one of the San Bernardino killers, 27-year-old Tafseen Malik, who entered the country after marrying Saeed Rizwan Farouk, had passed a DHS counterterrorism screening process as part of her vetting for a K-1 visa. The screenshot below, just in case the tweet somehow mysteriously disappears, I will show it to you. And here's a screenshot of that tweet. And it says as follows: "New shooting suspect Tasheen Malik passed DHS counterterrorism screening as part of her vetting for K-1 visa." It wasn't only the DHS screening Malik passed, but according to an LA Times article titled "Rampage Killers Led Secret Life, Hiding Plans and Weapons," she also had to go through an FBI background check. Authorities said that when he returned to the U.S. in July 2014, he brought Malik with him on a finance visa. After a background check by the FBI and the DHS, she was granted a conditional green card last summer. Now, quick pause. The underwear bomber, feds brought him in, brings him right on through the checkpoints and the backgrounds and all that, and they carried out an attack. On December 3rd, 2015, U.S. Senators Ted Cruz and Jeff Sessions sent a letter to the U.S. DOJ Attorney General Lynch and the DHS Security Secretary Jay Johnson, and Department of State Secretary John Kerry, demanding basic information originally requested back in August 2015 regarding the immigration histories of 72 individuals in the U.S. who have been identified as having a connection to terrorism over a one-year period. Text of the full letter here are in bold point, mind, because there are a number of points that need to be addressed within this letter. The PDF is here. Dear Attorney General Lynch, Secretary Johnson, and Kerry, on August 12th, we sent a letter requesting that you provide basic information regarding the immigration histories of 72 individuals in the U.S. who have been identified as having a connection to terrorism over a one-year period. You have failed to comply with the request sent more than 3.5 months ago. As a response is not only overdue but urgent in light of a series of assaults, including the horrendous attacks in San Bernardino, the earlier attacks on the military recruiting center Chattanooga, and the Boston bombing. Congress' imminent consideration of government funding legislation that would include funding for the myriad investigation programs that have allowed for these events to occur. Press reports include that the alleged perpetrators of yesterday's attacks, Farouk and his new wife, Malik, wore assault-style clothing described as tactical gear, and authorities described their home as an IED factory with multiple pipe bombs and small explosives strapped to remote-controlled cars. According to these press reports, Farouk is a child of immigrants who entered the U.S. from Pakistan, and Malik traveled to the U.S. from Saudi Arabia. So they sent her to Saudi Arabia to get intelligence as well. According to the LA Times, Farouk recently traveled to Saudi Arabia and returned with a new wife he had met online, as the report added. The following detail: Farouk traveled to Saudi Arabia for several weeks in 2013. On the Hajj, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca, the Muslims are required to take at least once in their life, which didn't raise flags, said two government officials. It was during this trip that he met Malik, a native of Pakistan, who came to the U.S. on a finance visa and later became lawful permanent resident. Among Muslim nations, Pakistan is the top recipient of U.S. green cards, having received 83,000 between the fiscal years of 2009 through 13. Furthermore, according to the CBS News, sources say that the two viewed as ISIS propaganda online, and separate reports indicate that Farouk was in touch with other individuals being investigated for terrorism. Accordingly, in addition to the previous requesting information from our August 12th letter, we demand that you immediately provide the same detailed information requested in that letter for Farouk and Malik, which would include the immigration history of their parents and immigration documents related to their marriage and her subsequent travel to the U.S. In our struggle against terrorism, we're dealing with an enemy that has shown not only is capable of bypassing security screening, but of recruiting and radicalizing Muslim migrants after their entry to the U.S. The recruitment of terrorists in the U.S. is not limited to adults, but to the young children as well, and the U.S.-born children, which is why family immigration history is vital and necessary to understand the nature of the threat. In the first 11 months of this year, we have already identified 12 individuals being brought into the country as refugees who have been subsequently implicated in terrorism. Their countries of origin range from Bosnia to Somalia to Uzbekistan. These events do not occur in isolation, but tend to be part of broader networks of radicalization and extremism that must be understood as we develop immigration policy. Congress is days away from consideration of an ambitious year-end funding bill that will set the U.S. on an autopilot path to approve green cards, asylum, and refugee status to approximately 170,000 migrants from Muslim countries during the next fiscal year. In addition, that would tens of thousands of temporary visas for entry and employment, and the entire sum is added to the rest of the annual autopilot green card, asylum, refugee, and foreign workflow. The security task involved is immense, and Congress must have the requested info if lawmakers are to act as responsible stewards of the American immigration policy, which is a bunch of bullshit. Starting at the first portion emphasized above, we see that August 2015, Congress knew of at least 72 individuals in the U.S. that have been connected to terrorism over a 1 year period, which obviously doesn't include the San Bernardino killers. This leaves the obvious concern of how many more are being leading secret lives, running bomb factories in their homes, and stockpiling gear for another attack. There are even more concerning aspects of this letter. The fact that the U.S. Congress is forced to obtain the information divulged within this letter from the press. The very same Congress responsible for funding Obama's Trojan horse invasion of the U.S. that they have a plan to put the program on autopilot. And in the meantime, Obama's planning gun control by fiat. And there's another screenshot. All those in favor of gun control, raise your hand. Rather than suspending the refugee resettlement program until the vetting process can be overhauled, and the FBI and the DHS and other alphabet terrorism groups of government can catch up with a backlog of investigations on individuals already in the U.S. with ties to terrorism, some of which, along with the refugees, as critics often warn, would happen. Dictator Obama is planning to push his gun control agenda by executive order. What Obama and his merry band of gun grabbers are specifically not noting is that California, where the attack happened, already has the same type of gun control laws gun proponents are pushing to have enacted universally. And it's from Breitbart. When Farouk and Tawfiq Muslim carried out their California jihad on December 2nd, they did so in a state with expanded background checks, registration requirements for assault weapons, and an A- grade from the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence. None of these things prevented the attack from occurring. California expanded background checks, which means they require background checks on every sale, retail or private. These are the checks that Dictator Obama and Dictator McCain and Democrat surrogates like Gabby Giffords, Mark Riley, Shannon Watson, and others are pushing at the federal level on the false premise of keeping Americans safe. They are the same checks that Colorado enacted after the Haney's December 2012 on Sandy Hook Elementary, under the illusion that such checks would prevent such a high-profile public attack. The latest high-stake profile on Colorado November 27th was the one before that took place on Halloween Day. The kicker that comes at the end of the Breitbart piece concludes, it is interesting to note, in addition to expanded background checks, California has gun registration requirements for assault weapons, which Obama commonly refers to weapons of war. Farouk and Malik used AR-15s as part of the California jihad, but the registration requirement appears to have posed no hindrance. Police face off with Obama and Democrats on guns, while Obama and the media continue to push the gun control narrative. Oslo County, New York Sheriff Paul J. Van Markram issues a statement via the department's official Facebook, which starts attention, stating that encouraging licensed handgun owners and responsible take advantage of the legal right to carry a firearm to assure the safety of yourself and others. And there's a screenshot of it below, which I will show. That's the screenshot of it. So, you get the gist of this. This article is quite lengthy. I'm almost out of time. That's why I'm speaking quickly. So they're doing this and they want more gun control. Wake up, people. Get prepared. God bless and be safe. You can find us on All News Pipeline.